Hello, my name's Amelia Freeman. I'm a senior solutions consultant at Conductor, and I'm really happy to be here today to talk to you all about leveling up your Conductor skills and, in the process, leveraging Conductor in order to train the next generation of crisis leaders. Um, so, if you're not familiar with Conductor, we are a crisis simulation platform that allows you to run realistic and highly immersive crisis experiences. I think many of you have probably been on the receiving end of a crisis exercise using Conductor at this point, um, or you may have been involved in the process of creating an exercise using Conductor. And at our core, we believe that placing participants at the center of an immersive experience allows you to train realistically and gives you the lessons and the knowledge that you need to transfer that directly into your later life and into the jobs that you may have going forward. Um, and this links quite strongly to the concept of the cones of learning, or the learning pyramid, you may have heard it called, um, which looks at the ways that we as individuals retain information from a learning environment. So this shows us how much we retain 2 weeks um, after receiving information. So after 2 weeks, we only retain about 10% of what we read and 20% of what we hear. But if we look at the bottom of the pyramid here, we can see that simulating the real experience or doing the real thing, so doing something highly realistic and immersive, allows you to retain about 90% of that experience. And that's where you get those kind of transferable skills, and you're able to take that knowledge forward into your future jobs, your current jobs, and into any kind of crisis leadership that you might be doing further down the line. So that's why we believe so strongly in putting participants at the centre, essentially, of an adventure. Um, and we believe that the best way to create that adventure is through immersion and being in the moment. And at Conductor, we like to use three different types of immersion. That is challenge based immersion. So, this is where we push the players to step out of their comfort zone, to engage with things that are often strenuous, that are stressful, and in the process are often highly realistic, in order to allow you to train in a realistic crisis. We also use sensory immersion. This is where we vary environments. We give you different channels of information. We provide you with a simulation across kind of different forms. This may take the form of emails, this may take the form of phone calls, social media, traditional media, kind of different methods of you receiving information as you would in real life. And also through imaginative immersion, so using kind of emotional first-hand experiences and placing you at the center of an adventure, like I said previously. And kind of blending this experience together allows your exercising and your kind of training to be remembered more easily, and for you to then use those skills further down the line. They become transferable and transformative. And these different types of immersion also encourage you to create new skills and to use different skills throughout the simulation itself. So player agency and autonomy is at kind of the center of the experiences that we create, and to encourage you to react as you would in real life, and so to kind of decide your own pathway through a crisis. And as Conductor is fully simulated, it's a kind of safe space for you to explore the ways that you individually respond to challenge, and also as a team respond to challenge. And so if you are in a crisis, you can kind of draw on your different assets, draw on your different skills, and then practice them in this kind of safe environment. So that might look like analyzing an environment and producing kind of deliverables, producing reports, producing insights. It might be collaborating with your team. It might be deciding on a course of action. And so these kind of different ways that we immerse you in an environment are designed in order to allow you to pull on these different threads and to, yes, kind of have a vast variety of ways that you can respond. And when we think about crisis simulation and crisis exercising, we have to think about what kind of skills we want our participants to achieve and what the purpose is and the reason that we're training them for. So, today I'm going to be speaking primarily about these kind of four key skills. So that's situational awareness and understanding, building up a picture during a crisis. It's about communication and teamwork and how you leverage your own skills along with other people's skills in order to approach the strategy and problem solving. So, how do you deal with the information you've been given? How do you decide what you would like to do? What your actions are going to be? And then how to ensure that these skills that you've gained are taken forward, how to assess people and to encourage improvement in a way that feels organic and is part of the experience itself. So, receiving in world feedback and adapting scenarios and crisis exercises in order to reflect the decisions that have been made as it's ongoing. So, I'm going to first talk about situational awareness and understanding and the tools in Conductor that you can use and provide to your participants in order to improve your situational awareness and understanding during an exercise. So Conductor is a virtual desktop that players interact with, and what information is provided to your participants is completely up to you as exercise designers. So all exercises with Conductor are bespoke and are designed and delivered in order to achieve and train in different areas and achieve different training objectives. And this might take the form of simulated social media. If you would like your participants to understand the world that they're operating within, you can provide them with realistic Facebook channels, with Twitter, with Instagram. We have different social media channels depending on the kind of region that you might be operating in. And all of this is with the aim to build a kind of really immersive and realistic experience for your participants. Crisis and especially things like reputational risk more and more happen in the online sphere. And so training in this environment where you are constantly having to kind of monitor a social media element trains your participants how to deal with a kind of ongoing and constantly evolving crisis. It might also take the form of simulated browsers and websites. So this might be blog posts, it might be news articles, it might be company websites, for instance, and all of this is to kind of aid the understanding that your players can gain as a part of an experience. So they could be updated regularly with more kind of information about the crisis that's unfolding, or they could be leveraged by your players in order to release press releases, to write statements, to interact with journalists, for instance. So having a kind of realistic media environment is essential for kind of understanding the information environment that you're operating in and building these kind of different websites and different stakeholders around the training objectives that you're trying to meet allows your participants to gain a better understanding of their environment. We're also providing players with different ways of gathering information and analysing it. So we're providing an info map which shows all of the social media and press geotagged on a map to be explored. So this again allows participants to kind of build up a picture of where pockets of information are occurring from, where there might be particular populations that are more active than others, and kind of areas of interest where they might want to dig a little deeper into the social media space and really explore kind of like geographically based information. We're also providing players with Social Watch, and it allows you to search for key terms within the environment, for personas, for hashtags, and again, just to really kind of drill down into the environment in a way that your participants believe is important. So understanding what they've identified, looking at the sentiment of that content, looking at what's trending over time, the most influential individuals within that environment. This tool is all about kind of understanding the social media space better and also being able to cherry pick specifically what they think is important to their exercise as a whole and focusing on that specifically. We're also providing participants with the ability to investigate hacked websites and website details. So if we're exercising in the cyberspace, which is becoming even more popular as cyber attacks increase, we're simulating the different features that might be available to you. So this might be websites have been taken down, you've got 404 errors, it might be a malicious attack, and players can have the ability to kind of peek behind the curtain as well. So where is this website hosted? Kind of all of that kind of backdoor information can also be provided for them, as well as being alerted to network changes. So if you are simulating a cyber attack, you can leverage the different kind of channels within the tool in order to simulate what you might have access to in real life. So it might be that you use a kind of crisis alerting system, and this is kind of emulating that in a similar way. So that was gaining an understanding of the environment and building situational awareness, all the tools that are available to you in order to allow participants to kind of get their head around the crisis and to dig for information where they need to. So I'm now going to talk a little bit about communication and teamwork. And when we think about participant teamwork and communication, we are always looking at the kind of process that teams have to go through as a crisis is unfolding. So if we're looking at this like participant teamwork diagram, we've got the crisis begins, and communication is an essential function of understanding what's happening and moving on to a coordination phase. So you have to leverage good communication to create a plan, to agree common goals, and to agree an understanding of the situation. So this might be with your colleagues, might be with external stakeholders, with third parties, with the public. But communication is essential in those early stages in order to move forward into a productive coordination and action section. So kind of building upon this communication, you can then decide who is taking on specific actions individually and making sure that you're all moving towards a common goal. So once that plan is agreed and you know your kind of order of battle as you move into a crisis, you can then move on to the next phase of coordination in order to start resolving it and eventually end up at normal business. So we're going to be looking at the different ways that you can use Conductor in order to really kind of improve those like communication elements and to go through that cycle as a team. So we have lots of tools of collaboration, including email and messenger channels. So all of your kind of realistic and normal interactions with people in your team, outside of your company or your work, or your colleagues, all of this can be simulated within the platform. So you can interact with key stakeholders. You can make plans together. You can simulate different channels. So if you use Slack, if you use Teams, if you use Gmail, all of this can be simulated within the platform to make sure that when you're training for crisis, you are training as you would do it in real life. So you're not learning false lessons. And as part of this, we're helping to enable success. So being able to maintain good communication with your team and by providing a simulated version of realistic communications allows players to fully understand what their role is, how they contribute to the success of their team, and as I said, in that early kind of teamwork process in that cycle, agreeing what people's individual tasks and responsibilities are and how they all interact with each other in order to work towards a common goal. So ensuring that when you're training for crisis, you are training as you would really do it, is enabling your participants to be successful in their goals. And we're also creating a varied environment. So communication doesn't just happen on one channel. It doesn't just happen over email. You receive information through a variety of means, and then part of preparing for crisis is knowing what information is important and also who to share it with. So within Conductor, individuals might receive phone calls that they are then required or encouraged to share the information from that phone call with other members of their team who didn't receive it. Some people might receive news updates that others don't see. And it's all about kind of encouraging that process of teamwork and to understand that people have access to different bits of information, but the common goal should drive you to kind of do cohesive information sharing. And to that end, we are also enabling the exercise control team to interact with the participants from a variety of different personas, meaning that all of these relationships that might be built during a crisis simulation, they feel realistic, and you can receive communication in world and feedback in world in real time, and kind of, you know, establish relationships with stakeholders. You can reach out to the people who are important to, you know, achieving your goals, and you can all communicate together. So you're not limited to automated responses or to a very small pool of personas that have been, you know, pre-designed. All of those people can be played by experts in your fields, so that it feels as realistic as possible. And all of this communication and teamwork and establishing good practices is all to enable participants to have a kind of healthy strategy and problem solving approach. So it's all like building these foundations. You've done a kind of understanding phase. You've tried to analyze the environment and gathered as much information as you can. You've used the kind of tools available to you within Conductor to communicate with each other, to build up a process, and to understand your objectives. And then you can move into the problem solving and kind of crisis combat mode. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the ways in Conductor that you can move into that space. And it's often by exercise control, having the ability to change the environment and to change the exercise dynamically in response to those decisions. So in this example here, we're looking at two different outcomes to a cyber attack and a ransom request. One where the participants did pay the ransom, one where they didn't. And being able to kind of change the exercise in direct response to what participants have done means that it's as realistic as it can be. And it means that you're not guided down a path that you maybe wouldn't have taken in real life. So your exercise control team are able to respond to you rather than you responding to them. You're also might be asked questions. You might be asked to make decisions. You'll be posed, you know, different kind of situations that you have to assess and come to conclusions with. This might be as a team, this might be as individuals, and this is where you kind of put your strategy to work. So after you've done your communications and your understanding, how do we progress? How do we actually make decisions? Like, what is our route to market in that sense? And all of these decisions are captured by exercise control. So any kind of decisions that you make within the tool are being monitored, and this is how the kind of exercise develops dynamically depending on what you've decided to do. So whether you've paid the ransom, whether you've not paid the ransom, this is all looked at by exercise control, and then the exercise develops from there. So it's a loop, ensuring that it's as true to life as it can be. And the ability to kind of dial up and down the pressure to see how you deal with new information after you've decided your strategy is important, just because in a crisis that's quickly evolving, you need to have a kind of dynamic way of approaching it, and just testing that kind of communication and testing that strategy and your common goals, and ensuring that you can be quick on your feet, for example. So we might use notifications in order to do that, to kind of give you more information at the tip of our fingers, and to see how you evolve from there. We're also providing participants and Conductor with the ability to look at different documents, insights into server diagrams, to look at maps, for instance, and all of this is to aid decision making. So just because it's a simulated space doesn't mean you shouldn't have access or can't have access to all of your kind of usual assets and your resources that you would have in a real crisis. So you can simulate a kind of Google Drive, organizational charts, and kind of all of the views that you would normally have can be replicated within Conductor as well. And as I said, with the kind of ability to make the exercise dynamic, the exercises can all be adjusted in order to suit the experience of the different teams. So being able to add in additional tasks, being able to ask about long-term strategy, is all possible in order to test, your resilience, and to really ensure that even if you are like an experienced crisis team or crisis leaders, that you can think beyond the crisis that you're currently in, and maybe like tease out those extra elements, using kind of dynamic injects and that kind of thing. And in addition to that, exercise control have the ability to dial up and down the intensity of the environment and vary the environment. So social media content can be intensified by exercise control in order to create a kind of more overwhelming environment. Media inquiries, emails from stakeholders, all of these things can be turned up and down depending on how well participants might be doing and how much pressure you want to exert on them, just to see if they can cope, I suppose, with a constantly kind of dynamically evolving environment, and to push you to your limits as kind of crisis leaders. So exercise control have the ability to do this on the fly as well. And all of these interactions that the training audience are having, and especially kind of in the social media space and in the information space, can all have unique voices in order to allow simulations to be extremely nuanced and to be kind of as in depth as you would expect in real life. So in real life, obviously, the kind of variety of people that you might find on social media, that you might find making inquiries from the press, these will be of huge variety, and we have the ability within the platform to ensure that that kind of variety of tone and that unique perspective on things is all replicated. So you can make different factions of people, different points of view, different content with different tones, and it's all to test again your kind of understanding of the environment, your ability to appeal to different target audiences, different groups, different populations, for instance. And part of crisis exercising as a whole is learning from your actions and being able to take those lessons learned forward and to understand in the moment if you've done well or if you've not done so well. And so part of the kind of experience that you gain through Conductor is that your exercise control are able to feed back into the exercise how you're doing in real time. So you can always adjust as you move through the exercise and learn on the go. So as we know, you retain most of the information you learn if you're doing it through experience. So if you're receiving feedback in world and whilst the crisis is still ongoing, and then you can adjust whilst you're still dealing with it, you're learning that kind of new lesson as you go, and you're much more likely to kind of take that adjustment forward. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how Conductor allows for continuous assessment of the training audience and for you to provide that improvement and that feedback as you move through it. So kind of 3 key things that you are measuring in your participant your participant groups are adaptability, cohesion, and organization. So, how do they react to changes in the environment? Can they deal with more pressure being added? Does it affect their cohesion in any way? If an environment becomes more pressurized, can they still achieve a common goal and rely on each other? And does everyone still understand their roles and responsibilities when an environment is highly stressful and when people are motivated by different things, for instance? So these are the three kind of things that often exercise control are looking at when they're measuring participant performance. And so kind of the environments are designed in order to put you through your paces and kind of test you against those. So we've been looking at how the kind of processes that the participants go through, but then this kind of final stage here after ACT is how that impacts the environment. So the first step for participants is often to observe. This is our situational awareness and understanding phase. This is where participants try to kind of situate themselves within the environment. They orient themselves, so they think about their own experiences, other people's experiences, the culture they're operating in, the point of view. They think about their team, their cohesion, they figure out their kind of common goal, and then using that, participants decide what they're going to do, um, how they should approach the problem at hand, and then once they're all in agreement, they act upon it. And it's at this point where exercise controllers or the observers of these exercises can look at the participants and their actions and use that to feed back into the environment. So this might be varying the outcomes using multiple events lists. It might be dialing up or down the pressure using social media and pattern of life. It might be asking for more information from them or asking them to consider a longer term strategy. And it's just kind of giving that constant feedback as they move through the exercise. And in order to provide our exercise control with insights as to what is happening, we have a metrics dashboard called Pulse. And this is a configurable dashboard available to anyone in the exercise control team. And it allows them to monitor for exactly what is happening within the environment that they're interested in seeing. So in this example that I'm showing you now, we're looking at a kind of an embedded version of the info map to see what information is coming out and from where, in order for exercise control to maintain situational awareness as well. And then we're also looking at the disposition of audiences within the region, who is talking the most, which hashtags are trending, and kind of which phrases and hashtags are trending and doing well within the environment. And this is all so that we can feed back into the environment that we've created and into the exercise. How the kind of social media space is evolving, why that might be, and either to kind of guide them down a different path or to show them the outcomes of their actions in a realistic way as they would see in real life. So if they have performed very well in the information space, they might receive lots of positive feedback on social media, for instance. Or if they have not achieved an objective that they were looking for, you could increase pressure from stakeholders, for instance, to kind of demonstrate to them that they've missed out on a key aspect or they haven't achieved their goal properly. So maintaining good situational awareness for exercise control is equally as important because it allows them to respond dynamically to what's happening and to ensure that the exercise is as realistic as possible and as kind of rewarding as possible for the participants themselves. So just an example, if things improve, you might get good feedback, or alternatively, you might see a decline in the kind of information space if you would like to add a bit more pressure to your participants. And so having that ability to respond dynamically is just as important as the actions of the participants themselves. so to make evolving and dynamic scenarios, as we saw earlier, with different options available to you, so that everything is as realistic as possible, and you are training how you fight, essentially. So what you would do in real life is what you should be training with as well. So I hope this has been helpful and hopefully a bit illuminating as to how we can kind of leverage Conductor in order to achieve the different kind of outcomes that we want from our crisis exercises. We want to test the kind of understanding and situational awareness. We want to test the communication and the teamwork, the strategy and the problem solving, and also to ensure that we are learning the correct lessons and providing feedback in world to participants, so they are learning as they go how their actions might be received, and all the kind of different features and benefits of Conductor can be used and leveraged in order to achieve those common goals. So I'm very happy that I've been able to provide this presentation today and to talk a little bit about crisis exercising in this way, and hopefully your crisis exercises have been suitably illuminating and experiential, and you can go forward into kind of future jobs and future opportunities feeling well prepared for any crises that hopefully don't but might come your way. So thank you very much.